Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. It's Tuesday, April the 21st, and I'm calling this meeting to order at 4 p.m. I'm going to start with a land acknowledgement. The municipality of Port Hope exists on the lands of the Mississauga Anishinaabeg traditional territory covered by the Williams Treaties. We honor and recognize First Peoples as rights holders and stewards of the lands and waters on which we have the privilege to live, work, and play, including the Ganaraska Forest and River. We pay respect to elders past, present, and emerging. We commit to actions towards truth and reconciliation by recognizing the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, strengthening ties with First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, especially those who make their home in Port Hope, and learning from Indigenous ways of knowing and being. We do so by recognizing the past and working towards a shared future. Moving on to the next item, does anybody have any pecuniary interest before we move on? Seeing none, we're going to move on to item number 3, which is our closed session today. Today, we will be proceeding in closed session in accordance with the Municipal Act to address items pertaining to personal matters, to information explicitly supplied in confidence to the municipality or local board by Canada, a province or territory, or Crown agency of any of them, Section 239(2)H, and a position plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board, Section 239K, ongoing Atomic Energy of Canada Limited negotiations, and litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, Section 239(2)E, and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, Section 239(2)F, OLT 26000098, RE 2 Fox Road. So I need a mover and seconder to proceed into closed session. Moved by Councillor Less, seconded by Councillor Mink. All in favour? And that is passed unanimously. And please do note that I will provide a rise and report publicly at the open council meeting once we come out of closed session. Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. It's Tuesday, April the 21st, and I'm going to call our council meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. We're going to start with a moment of silent reflection. Thank you. Moving on to our land acknowledgement. The municipality of Port Hope exists on the lands of the Mississauga Anishinaabeg traditional territory covered by the Williams Treaties. We honor and recognize First Peoples as rights holders and stewards of the lands and waters on which we have the privilege to live, work, and play, including the Ganaraska Forest and River. We pay respect to elders past, present, and emerging. We commit to actions towards truth and reconciliation by recognizing the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, strengthening ties with First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, especially those who make their home in Port Hope, and learning from Indigenous ways of knowing and being. We do so by recognizing the past and working towards a shared future. Moving on to the next item, does anyone have any pecuniary interest to declare? None were received prior to the meeting. Moving on then to item number 3, which is closed session reporting. Earlier today, Council passed a motion to proceed into closed session at 4 p.m. to consider business as permitted under the Municipal Act and is listed on today's agenda. This motion was passed in a public session, streamed live, and was in accordance with our closed meeting policy. Business arising from closed session. In the spirit of continued transparency, I can report at this open meeting the outcomes from today's closed session. Council approved the closed session minutes from April 2nd, 2026. That was the last time Council met in closed session. Council received information explicitly supplied in confidence to the municipality or local board by Canada, a province or territory or a Crown agency, and considered a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of a municipality or local board. This is in relation to ongoing Atomic Energy of Canada Limited negotiations. Council also considered items related to litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals, and received advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. This is in relation to 2 Fox Road, OLT 26 000098. Council received these confidential updates as information and provided direction to staff. I would like a mover and seconder for the following motion. The Council received the confidential updates regarding the ongoing ACL negotiations in 2 Fox Road for information and confirm the confidential direction provided to staff in closed session. Moved by Councillor Todd, second by Councillor Darrell. All in favour? And that is passed unanimously. Moving on to what is going to no doubt be the best part of tonight's meetings, our announcements, updates, and recognitions, starting with the Sustainability Expo Youth Showcase Award winners presentation. So tonight we have a special awards presentation as part of the Sustainable Art Showcase organized through our Environmental Advisory Committee, challenging young people to show us their vision for a greener Port Hope. All submissions will be on display at the Expo on Sunday, April the 26th at Town Park Recreation Centre, and inviting all of you to come out for this event. And there'll be more winners and prizes announced there. So tonight, joined by Councillor Clare, we are celebrating 3 outstanding early winners. So, Councillor Clare, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. So the winners, when I announce you, you can come on into the horseshoe here and you can receive your certificate from Marilena. And I think there's going to be a little photo op as well of you with the mayor, okay? So our first award this evening is for the first place in art. And the first place goes to Hazel for Port Hope, a bright, colorful drawing of a sunny, clean Port Hope with someone fishing on the banks of the river. Congratulations, Hazel. Okay. Congratulations. Okay. All right. The next award is the first place in the upcycled creation category. And this first place effort is a team effort. And it goes to Amara, Amelia, Vera, and Kelsey, who created the Ganaraska, built from recycled cardboard and the materials which even include a tiny human figure who is recycling in the art. So congratulations. And this last award is an honorable mention. In fact, we kind of created this category just so that we could issue this award to this group because we were so impressed. This one was a full class effort, and it's created by the class of Miss Ryan and Miss Palmer in grade 3 at Ganaraska Trail, who created this poster from recycled cereal boxes, painted blue for the water with wrappers turned into fish and upcycled materials forming the seaweed. Congratulations to the whole class. Come on. And we have a couple of students and Ms. Ryan who is here to accept on behalf of the class.
You really do have to come to the expo to see these fish. They're really something else. So congratulations to all of our winners, and I encourage everybody, as I said, to come out to the expo on April the 26th. What are the hours, Councillor Clare? 10 to 3 p.m. At the Town Park Recreation Centre to see all of the other submissions and, of course, to enjoy a full day of workshops, presentations, and exhibits. And at this point, if any of the award recipients and their families would like to leave, we'll just take a short 2-minute recess. Okay, moving on to our next item, 5.2, Volunteer Appreciation and Proclamation. Today, on behalf of council, staff, and the residents of Municipality of Port Hope, I'm honored to recognize and celebrate our volunteers. National Volunteer Week provides an opportunity to reflect on the important role volunteers play in our community. Across Port Hope, individuals generously contribute their time, energy, and skills, and in support of others. Volunteerism is more than just an act of service. It reflects a strong sense of community, a willingness to support one another, and a shared commitment to make a positive difference. Volunteers help advance municipal work from our local boards and committees to our events, programs, and local initiatives. Volunteers contribute meaningfully to the strength and vitality of Port Hope, and we are pleased to recognize them through multiple endeavors and avenues. Later this spring, we will honor their contributions through a commemorative tree planting, a lasting symbol of the impact volunteers have in helping our community grow and thrive. And of course, on April the 30th, our annual Civic Awards ceremony will celebrate the contributions from groups and individuals of all ages, backgrounds, and abilities, reflecting the breadth and depth of the Port Hope community. Further, I'm honored to also issue a proclamation recognizing April 19th to the 25th as National Volunteer Week in the Municipality of Port Hope. To all of our volunteers, on behalf of your municipal council, please accept our sincere thanks. Your contributions are valued and your dedication does not go unnoticed. Thank you, Councillor Clare, for holding that up. The second item that I'm going to be speaking to is in regards to Float Your Fanny. A big congratulations to everyone involved in making this year's Float Your Fanny Down the Ganney such a tremendous success. The weather gods were definitely on our side this year, but from our dedicated municipal staff, first responders, and community partners, the planning committee, the countless volunteers who gave their time and their energy, we were so fortunate to have a beautiful day. The river was filled with smiles, laughter, and a strong sense of community. Events like this not only celebrate one of our most cherished traditions, but also showcase teamwork, spirit, and pride that make Port Hope such a special place. So thank you, everybody, for coming out, for supporting, and helping to ensure such a memorable and safe day for everyone. Moving on to provincial announcements and roundtable. On Friday, I attended a provincial funding announcement under the province's municipal housing infrastructure program, Health and Safety Water Stream. The municipality will receive more than $7 million towards the construction of a new water tower on Croft Street. This investment will support Port Hope's long-term growth and ensure stable, expanded supply of safe drinking water for years to come. Following the announcement, I also participated in a round-table discussion with Minister McCarthy, the Acting Minister of Infrastructure, and the Minister of Environment, Conservation and Parks, and our MPP, David Piccini, along with mayors from right across the region. The discussion focused on local priorities and needs, the successes of provincial investments, including roads, water systems, and bridges, and also the needs moving forward into the future. And following that roundtable discussion, I also had the opportunity to speak with the minister for an additional 15 minutes to talk about the needs of Port Hope moving into the future, especially around infrastructure. The grant that we received for the water tower is welcome, but we still have a shortfall in the total cost. And of course, we have other infrastructure needs in this community, most notably a new fire station. I also want to announce that as a result of the meeting that occurred with the Premier a couple of weeks ago now, that we have landed one of the asks that I had brought forward in that meeting, and that is to have an assigned provincial liaison to oversee our conversations around the potential for new nuclear at Wesleyville. In fact, we received 2 liaisons have been assigned to this file, so this is great success for us. What it also means is that we will have biannual meetings in front of numerous ministers that are most relevant to that project, and we have a point person, or now point persons, in the province that will help us with our conversations and our asks. This is much more effective than delegating one-on-one with different ministries at either Roma or AMO, because really it does require a cross-ministerial effort. So this is a good step in the right direction. Now, do council members have any announcements or updates related to municipal business that they'd like to share? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Well, we just got finished talking a lot about volunteerism. So what better time than right now to ask for a bunch of volunteers? So this Sunday, we're going to be working, I need a bunch of volunteers to help clean up Port Hope. We have noticed that there is a little bit of garbage in some of the ditches around town as we went through a very long winter. And of course, when you put your garbage out, sometimes it blows around and it's time to pick it up and clean up Port Hope. So this Sunday at the Town Park Rec Center, there will be the Sustainability Expo, which we've already seen some of that. And then we'll also be doing a community cleanup starting at noon. So you meet at the rec center at noon. At 12:30, we'll be going out to different locations and trying to get the entire town cleaned up. So looking forward to seeing everybody out there. On top of that, we're going to have a little bit more fun after. So when we come back at 2 o'clock, we're going to have a touch-a-truck event where we've got a whole bunch of different things there. We have fire trucks, excavators, police cars, lots of fun stuff there. And a lot of them will be open for kids to get on and play. And then we also have a free community barbecue at the same time. I'm going to pass this over to Councillor Clare, as I have a feeling that she'd like to talk a little bit about the Sustainability Expo.
Before that, I just want to say, do you want to talk about how competitive you are going to be about this cleanup, Deputy Mayor? Because I do think that that's an important component of this.
Oh, absolutely. So the community cleanup, we're also joining in part of the county's mayor's cleanup. And it's a competition. Who doesn't love competitions? I love winning things. So the goal is to clean up the most amount of garbage out of all the different municipalities, but also to have the most amount of volunteers out of all the different municipalities. So we're hoping to win both of those. Technically, we don't really want to have the most garbage because that means we have a lot of garbage out there, but we'll get it all cleaned up, whatever we find out there. Thank you.
Councillor Clare.
We've already shared some updates about that through the mayor already, but just as additional draw, there will be turtles, there will be bees on site, there will be Repair Cafe there repairing any of your broken or items, household items, lamps, toasters, that kind of thing. There'll be workshops on upcycling clothing. There's going to be all sorts of hands-on opportunities to learn about heat pumps, home retrofitting, and all sorts of other cool green things. But yes, there will be turtles and bees. So it really is worth coming out. There's something for everyone, and it's an all ages, kid-friendly event. Lots of fun to be had, so I hope to see you there.
Thank you. Anyone else with Councillor Mink?
Thank you. So along sort of the same theme, but not as fun, I just wanted to give an update on conservation authorities. So I want to thank my peers, Adam being one of them, for electing me as the chair again for the GRCA. And I've also just been appointed to the transition committee, which will take us into 2027. And what that means is, as many of you know, our Ganaraska Region Conservation Authority will now be merged with 6 other conservation authorities. Our boundaries, we are on the west. Our new conservation authority will take us out to Brockville to the east, and then up to Cloyne and Halliburton in the north. So it's a very large area. The CEO and I attended a virtual meeting a couple weeks ago with some updates, and we'll be joined with Councillor Randy Barber from Cobourg for the annual general meeting coming up on April 27th in Vaughan. So anybody who has an interest in this topic and wants to know more, please reach out to me. I'm happy to share that information. And just one other sort of community update that was passed off to me. So as many of us know, I've spoken about, we actually have 2 food banks who service the rural and urban area of Port Hope, the other one being our neighbors up in Bewdley. It's called Community Works. On Saturday, May 3rd from 9 to 2, they're having a sale. They will have brand new clothes and summer shoes. Every item is $1 each. They'll also have baking, toys, kitchenware, homeware, a lot of good stuff up there. So please pass this along, and please also attend, especially if you want some baking. It will help our neighbors who need a little extra help. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to the next item. Our report from councillors, and I note that Emily is with us. This evening, Leah is not able to join, but we're going to turn over our attention to Emily for her update.
Good evening, Council. I'd like to start off by apologizing for missing last month's meeting. However, throughout March and April, I have attended meetings with the Mayor's Youth Council, and I'm very excited for the upcoming National Youth Week. National Youth Week is celebrated to recognize and highlight the youth in our community. Every year it takes place from May 1st to May 7th, and it includes a lot of fun and free activities for youth in Port Hope, and outside of our community as well. I highly recommend looking into what activities are available because there's always something for everyone, and I'm very excited to volunteer and attend the events this year. I've also been attending the Civic Award Committee meetings, and I'm very excited for the Civic Awards night coming up. The past few months that have been spent preparing for it have been very cool to see all the work behind the scenes. I am really excited to see a lot of familiar faces there. I recently attended the Nuclear Development Listening Circle hosted at the Port Hope Library. It was a very neat opportunity to experience, and I was very glad to have been invited to participate in the circle. I would love to participate in something like this again because it really helped me learn more about nuclear development, and everyone had a lot of interesting thoughts to share, and there were some really good takeaways from the circle. My friends and I have been spending a lot of time downtown Port Hope at the Youth Wellness Hub. I love to play all the games that they have and enjoy having such a positive space where everyone feels welcome. If you haven't checked it out yet, I recommend doing so soon. As many of you are aware, tomorrow's April 22nd is Earth Day. This is a very important day, not only for Port Hope, but also for everyone. With my school, I've already worked to help make a difference by doing 2 different cleanups. I think it's very important to recognize Earth Day and everything that we can do to help out with our planet. I would like to enjoy this warmer weather. Hopefully it stays, and I hope everyone is very excited for some upcoming sunny days.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments back to our youth councillor? I assume we'll see you on the weekend.
Yes, you will.
Okay. Thank you very much for that update, and we look forward to seeing both you and Leah, who, of course, sends her regrets for this evening at our next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
So now we're going to move on to delegations, and we actually have 4 delegations on the agenda tonight. So it is a heavy evening. I do request that our delegates please be mindful of their time limits, which are set out in our procedural bylaw. Please note that a bell will ring when you have 2 minutes remaining. So we're going to start with Paul Seguin from, he's the Senior Vice President, Ontario Power Generation, regarding an update on the potential for new nuclear generation at OPG's Wesleyville site. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you, Mayor Hankiewski. Good evening, everyone. Nice to see some of you I've met before, some I haven't. So as the mayor said, I'm Paul Seguin, Senior Vice President for the Wesleyville project for Ontario Power Generation. Been in the role since January. So joined the Wesleyville team in January. This is my first opportunity before you. So It is my pleasure to be in front of council today to provide this update. It's an update on the possibility of new nuclear generation in Port Hope. Today, we'll look where we are in the process, including our impact assessment, review our varied engagement methods, and look ahead at opportunities for continued collaboration in the months ahead. Just briefly to go over some of what we've talked about before, new nuclear at Wesleyville and Port Hope. To help meet the growing demand for electricity in the province, the Ontario government has asked OPG to explore the potential for hosting up to 10,000 megawatts of nuclear power generation at its Wesleyville site. The site at Wesleyville, those of you may be familiar with the site, it's a 1,300-acre site that has many features that make it ideal for hosting a large nuclear development. One, it's been municipally zoned and maintained for electricity generation for more than 50 years. It has the potential to co-locate other industries on the site. It has existing access to transmission, railways, and roads. And the site has the potential to host up to 10,000 megawatts, which would be enough for approximately 10 million homes. One other thing I'll highlight, when Ontario asked us to explore Wesleyville as a potential home for nuclear generation, it's really looking at the forecast for demand. And the Independent Electricity System Operator is predicting and forecasting up to a 65% increase in demand by 2050, and that's the baseline forecast. In a situation where electrification is actually picked up at a higher rate, the high forecast demand could be up to 90% increase by 2050. And that's really what's driving looking for new generation opportunities, including Wesleyville. Here's a bit of the potential timeline for new nuclear at Wesleyville. There are variables built into this around the impact assessment timeline and the licensing requirements. But roughly where we are now is in the impact assessment. We submitted the impact assessment and initiated that in January, received comments on our project description and responded to those comments. In April, the assessment agency confirmed that a full impact assessment would be required for the project and also posted draft guidelines that set out what impacts we are to assess and the methodology for doing that. That draft is available now for comment to be provided by May. And that really feeds into the next step in the impact assessment, which is assessment of impacts leading to an impact statement that we will produce. The timeline for the impact assessment, between 3 and 5 years. Again, it's variable depending on the work that's required. By the late 2020s, therefore, we would have, pending a successful impact assessment, that would be an impact assessment that has a decision to proceed with project. Shortly after that, we'd receive a license from the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission to begin preparing the site for construction. We would also submit the next license with the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission to begin construction, looking to begin construction in the early 2030s, with a projection to have units operating in the early 2040s. So that's the general timeline for the project as you're thinking through what the impacts may be on the site and on the municipality between now and the 2040s. This kind of summarizes what I went through. The only thing I'll add is the final guidelines that are posted in draft right now are to be provided July 11th to OPG from the assessment agency. There is work underway at the site right now, so we've begun the work to collect data to be able to support the impact assessment. You'll see the list of what's going on site. A lot of that is archaeological work, both terrestrial archaeological work and marine archaeological work. It's also assessing vegetation, animal species on the site, and we are actively digging boreholes. That's probably the most obvious activity on the site right now. And that's to support hydrology. It's to support assessment and modeling of groundwater flows on the site. Again, to support that impact assessment. So that work is ongoing, and it will be ongoing through the next couple of years as we collect data for the impact assessment. Our team continues to be very active in the community, listening to the public, hearing and answering questions, presenting to community groups and students, staffing community booths at a wide variety of events. We were at the Float Your Fanny event a couple of weeks ago. I brought my 8-year-old son. He's already talking about designing a boat for next year, something about using Roblox. I don't quite get it, but welcoming visitors to our Nuclear Discovery Center on Toronto Road. So since January, we've engaged with more than 3,000 members of the public, including targeted engagement with near-site neighbors. This engagement's been ongoing since late 2025 and will be ongoing. This slide just highlights some upcoming engagement opportunities. So we will soon be mailing our latest project update to residents. In May, we'll be hosting another round of public information sessions, both in person and virtually. So details for these sessions are on the slides and can be found on our website. We'll be busy through the spring and summer in community at various events, including sponsored swims and skates, pop-up booths at local events, including the Northumberland Scottish Festival, Port Hope Jazz Festival. We'll be meeting with CAOs and mayors from across the county, and we'll continue to provide regular updates to Port Hope Council, community, and special interest groups. Our Nuclear Discovery Center, which features informative, interactive displays, is open Monday to Friday, 9:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m., 9 a.m. to 3:30 p.m., I should say, with staff available to answer questions from the public. And finally, our website, which is our main repository for information on the potential project, is frequently updated and provides details on where you can find our team in the community next. These are just some of the ways our team is ensuring an ongoing open line of communication with the public. We'll continue to provide you with up-to-date information and look forward to continued engagement with the municipality, mayor, council, and staff, rights holders, and community members. Thank you again for giving me the opportunity to provide today's update, and I'd be happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you very much for that update and overview, and I'll turn it over to colleagues for any questions for you. Seeing none, I'm going to, let me just jump in then while I have this thought, and then I'll turn it to you, Councillor Mink. I'm wondering, is the archaeological work that you're doing, is that in partnership with the surrounding nations? Or can you just talk about how that might be working?
It is. So we're engaging with the Williams Treaty Nations. The Michi-Sagi Nations have an active role in that archaeology assessment that we're doing. They have observers on site. They have archaeological experts as well that are working with us to perform that archaeology on site.
Councillor Mink.
Thank you. I just had a question about the community information centers. Is there any thought in having any to the north, specifically for, of course, rural Port Hope, but communities such as Kendall, Millbrook, Bewley, that area that are actually kind of closer than Cobourg is, not as much population, but there is an interest, and I am getting feedback from people in those communities wondering when they'll receive some communications.
So I'll take that feedback. Karen will take that feedback as well. They're certainly invited to the sessions that we're having. If it's helpful to have more local sessions for those folks in those communities, we'll take that back and look to do that. Mike?
Okay, seeing no other comments or questions, thank you very much for being here this evening, and the recommended motion is identified on the agenda to receive this for information. Can I get a mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor Less, seconded by Councillor Mink. All in favour? And that is passed unanimously. Moving on to our, thank you very much, Paul. Moving on to our next delegation, our Chief of Police, Tim Farquharson, Port Hope Police Service, regarding update on policing in the municipality of Port Hope. Welcome, Chief.
Thanks, Your Worship. Oh, this is actually working better. I'll be under the 10 minutes. First thing, I just want to give you a compliment to your team. We were down with the Premier, Solicitor General, and Attorney General Thursday evening, and one of the first things they brought up was the immense growth that'll be coming in Port Hope, and your leadership and your team brought a lot of tenacity, eagerness, persuasiveness. I'm trying to remember the words. I didn't mark them down, but he was very complimentary. So thanks for that. It was nice right off the bat. We were down there with the chiefs of police for just a discussion on challenges in policing. Some of them will come up in this. I also wanted to mention it's nice to see a board member, another boss of mine, Connie Flewitt, Who's here? Connie, thanks for coming. And a couple of my bosses here. Don't worry. Councillor Andrews, this will be short. I know, your time in it, so we'll fly through. So the first thing you'll see, and this is just an update, under the new act, it is similar to the previous act, what we're responsible for. 5 core responsibilities: law enforcement, crime prevention, public order maintenance, emergency response, and victim services. Just the leadership at the police service. You'll know we have a new inspector now, Ashley Gillard. She was a staff sergeant with the OPP, and she has been nothing but fantastic as our inspector, taking it to a new level. And so I'm very happy and proud to work with her. So I thank the board for choosing her in that process. It's turning out well. We have 2 excellent staff sergeants. She's mentored both of them for the last 6 months to give them both a chance. There'll be a competition for staff sergeant, but we have 2 incredible leaders. Our challenge, as I said to the board, will be which one you pick, but I'd rather have that challenge than not being ready. In our investigations, you'll see it's led, we just promoted in the last year Detective Sergeant Eric Rollins. He came from Toronto, was with Toronto for, I think, 15 years, and has been with us for approximately 5 years. And just an incredible amount of knowledge and skills, a great person. Our HEMHART team, Mental Health Engagement and Response team, we'll be talking about that briefly as we go along, computer forensic analyst, and our special constables and the great work that they do. On the front line, you know that there's 4 platoons, A, B, C, and D, and there's 4 officers on each, led by a sergeant at the police station. So there's 24/7 policing. The one thing that we ask for that's really important to us is beat patrol. We did the strategic plan. It's actually coming up at the end of 2026, so we'll be talking about starting that again. And what were the 3 things in Port Hope when we went to all the meetings? It was about timely response, beat patrol, and being out there visible. So just seeing the police cruisers. So one of the things we do is the school zones are really important to the board and our officers, if they can. It's the first place they go. Enforcing the school zones, they're at the schools, that's where we expect them to go. And even the CIB, when they can, take out a cruiser, even if they're in plain clothes, and just get around there. It's been successful as well. We have professional standards within, and that falls under the staff sergeant's office. The one thing that we do, people know, it's not just crime. 80% of what we do are social disorder. So that's your Liquor License Act, your Child and Family Services Act, HTA. It's all provincial offenses, trespass. We work with our municipal partners, David, Pam, Sam, and an amazing team and that relationship we have there. So it's not all about crime that we do. One of the best parts of our organization is our part-time policing. That came here long before I was here. Never had it at the service I was before. But I see the benefits, especially in small and mid-sized police services, to have the part-time officers. They're all retired officers. Unfortunately, we lost Dan Belanger to an injury. Just from the service, he took a full retirement after an injury and altercation downtown with making an apprehension. And Dan LeMay was a huge loss for us. He came from Peterborough along with Mark Elliott. Both officers had extensive knowledge in policing. They both retired. We've just had an interview today with an officer who wants to join us, so we'll be to 2. We do have complement that we can go to 4 once collective bargaining's complete, but it reduces overtime. When people are off, it fills in the shifts, and it's a huge officer and community safety component. So love our part-time officers. Drone operations, we have 5 drone operators, 5 pilots, so to speak. The drones used, as you know, it can be used for traffic reconstruction, it can be used for finding missing persons, it can be used for tracking criminals, it can also be used for intelligence. There's a whole vast array. That also came through a grant last year. So that's the reason we have the equipment that we do, is through that grant. We'll be talking about grants really briefly here in a moment. Mental health and integrated outreach team. Here it's, as I said, mental health engagement response team. It's different names everywhere, but the province actually calls it MCERT. So we'll be talking quickly about a grant we have there too. Our nurse is Michelle Shirley. She comes from Northumberland Hills Hospital. She's fantastic. So the double catalyst we have is that she not only has the crisis response, mental health crisis response, she also has addiction training as well. So it's going to help us, and it actually has helped us. So we've expanded that to full time. Computer forensic analyst. Long time ago, we were told by the OPP in Peterborough that they wouldn't be able to support us anymore. It'd be a 2-year wait. And as you know, there's a thing called the Jordan decision, case law, and it's creating all sorts of havoc. We have a time limit to get cases together and get the evidence before. Technology is a blessing and it's a curse as well. So Ryan Hedrick, who had come from Peterborough, is a fully trained computer forensic analyst now. So we'll be talking about that arrangement, because it's an excellent arrangement having him and his training. The shared emergency responses, we do have a lot of help from our friends in Cobourg, Belleville, Peterborough, City of Kawartha Lakes, OPP. I believe it just went out a couple days ago, the release on Project Rubicon. Basically, that money that assisted us came from the Solicitor General. Thanked him on Thursday. We couldn't have done it without that. It was Cobourg and Police Service trying to take care of an organized crime group that was specializing in tractor-trailer thefts. We lost $500,000 in copper in one theft in Port Hope. So the two services got together, and they've been doggedly working on this for quite some time. 51 charges, 13 alone related to tractor-trailer thefts throughout South Central Ontario. It's an organized crime group, 3 major arrests, lots of work still to do. They seized over $67,000 in proceeds of crime, heroin, cocaine, so there's a drug trafficking piece to it as well. We have an excellent relationship with our fire, Chief Jason Williams, who sits here. It's second to none. We're very, very blessed to work with Jason, David as well, and Susan Brown, our Chief of Paramedics. We have a really close relationship with all our fire departments and emergency service and municipality. So, community policing partnerships. Those are the relationships I had just mentioned. We also do a lot of training together through the EMPC. I believe Chief Williams was with Tammy Staples today working on evacuation plans for schools and emergencies. We know about the swatting incidents that have been happening at the schools lately. It was a challenge for me before, and it's a challenge here too in a smaller community, which is unfortunate because of the drain of resources are huge. We talked about the agreements that we have with these police services. They're called Section 14 agreements under the Act, Community Safety and Policing Act 2019. Those Section 14 agreements simply used to be called MOUs, Memorandums of Understanding or Joint Force Operations. They're now Section 14 and Section 19. 19s are for exigent circumstances, but the 14s are the ones that the boards agree to. Computer forensic analyst was one of those. The training that's gone into that is probably about 5 years into that officer, Ryan Hedrick. And what he does is the digital evidence piece. That includes internet child exploitation investigations. And he seized 35 devices. It was a Cobourg investigation. 35 devices. You can imagine going through the phones, the computers, the laptops, the amount of work that goes into that. That's just one call. That was a voyeurism investigation. So he's been extremely busy. His office is already full. But that grant was $240,000 through the Solicitor General that we had in equipment. And he's applied for more. But that's just the one grant. We're up at over $1 million in grants last year. Okay, I'm almost done. That's perfect. So we talked about our Enhart team, who we love. They're special constables, the training they have in the auxiliary. They can do the CPTED projects. Long story short, that's crime prevention through environmental design. And those are things that if a store had a rooftop break and enter, and it's organized crime groups, they will go to the store, spend time, they're trained to give advice on prevention. So it's a prevention education team, so they'll be doing that. They're continuing to do that when they're on the beats, and that's, like I said, auxiliary and special constables who are fantastic. Just on this, you'll see that, going backwards. I just want to talk about Tammy Staples for a minute and what she does. It's incredible, the values, influences, and peers, what she does in the schools, in training. The Tammy's Jammies is famous. OPP have picked it up now. Peterborough, Belleville, other police services are interested in it. Thousands of pairs of pajamas for kids at Christmas. It's just that's just one of the many things she does. She does the seniors outreach, fraud presentations. So do the other officers too, but she's doing this all the time. And the education, and I go through the schools with her. Every single child knows her name. It's like, it's amazing what she has given to this community. So I wanted to make sure I gave her it's her in the middle there. And we went past all the boards that we sit on, our members sit on, I sit on. I'm blessed to still be vice president for the Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police, so that means I'm responsible for 22 committees and working groups. That's all police operations for the province. It's intelligence, organized crime, substance advisory, traffic, victim services, youth, and I could go on. It's 22 and we're running out of time. I do want to just touch on those grants because, as I said, we had over $1 million in grants, which is fantastic. CCTV cameras, school grant, the MCERT grant, that is our MHART team is full-time now. We were just half-time when I got here. It's full-time. Street crime grant is a joint project that worked on Rubicon. That's an officer dedicated to street crime that's teamed up with Cobourg. And finally, the screening department. We all know what that is. I don't have to spend a lot of time on that. That was here long before me, and I hope it continues for years. But the impact on the capital portion, not the operating, but the capital portion of our expenses, we all know that. All the staff knows. It's fantastic. That team does a lot of work. Pays for our police cruisers, our firearms, a lot of our training. So a lot of capital expenses, all of our capital. We there? Okay, I think that was it. Yeah, what questions? I'm so glad you didn't ding, because I'd never hear the end of it from the boss. We have a board meeting on Thursday.
Thank you so much, Chief, for the update. And maybe I'm just going to start by asking you to expand a little bit on these screening services that you mentioned in that very last slide, and whether or not you can share with the public the value of that screening business for the police services and what you're hoping to achieve in terms of future milestones.
Sure. So the first year I was here was March 2025, 24. Anyway, the first year was, I believe it was around $580,000 of screening. You have to remember that you still have to pay for the employees, the equipment, all those types of things. So it's about 50% that comes back to the community each year. You'll know about everyone knows about our computer hacking incident. That was, if it wasn't for that screening team, that would have gone to the taxpayer, but it didn't. It would have gone to the taxpayer in most police services, but there's only approximately 5 police services that do this. So I had never had any experience with that in the past. As where we are now, it's probably $1.5 million. The board's heard this at the board meeting. So again, picture half of that going into a reserve that helps the community. It's not our money, it's actually the municipalities. We just have certain control over it with the assistance of council. So do we want to grow? Yeah, absolutely. We would like to grow. That would be the milestone, is to keep growing. We have been, and just to continue that trend, but to do it smartly.
Any other questions? Councillor Mink.
Sorry, I just want to say, Alex Goodrich is leading that team, and also Shannon McKinnon. She's the actual team lead, the day-to-day. The work that they're doing is really impressive. So I just wanted to give them a shout out.
Thanks. Thank you for your presentation. A couple things. So first, bang on with the beat and the visible presence. I continue to hear that feedback all the time, that people want that and appreciate that. I can't let the presentation go by without calling out the one line on the one slide, dedicated rural officer on duty 24/7. Can you please expand on that? This is the first time I'm hearing about this.
Yeah, so that was left over from a different presentation. So if there's an incident, we back each other up though in Cobourg, OPP, and ourselves. So the OPP will help us when we need it.
Right.
We just go through the inspector or staff sergeant and vice versa for all 3 police services. So we're all dedicated to each other in essence.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Councillor Clare.
Thank you. Really great to see the MHART program going full-time. I just wondered if you could speak a little bit to how much of the resources of our police service is responding to those types of resident needs where there are either residents who are unhoused or otherwise requiring that kind of intervention as opposed to a traditional sort of law enforcement intervention.
Sure. The extensive training that they have, our mental health nurse and Tammy is her partner. There'll also be, because it's gone full-time now and Tammy has her other jobs, there'll be other officers trained along with her for de-escalation, all those pieces, but they do proactive work as well. And they want to get to the point of being able to check on people, making sure they're taking their meds so they don't come into conflict with the law, all those things. They go through the reports each day. They look at calls for service. Some will be on their tasks. An officer who goes to a call that needs follow-up, if they can't deal with it at the time, if the officer that's working on night shift, if they make an apprehension, they'll do that on their own. But Tammy and Michelle will follow up. The MHART team will follow that up. They also, if they're working during the day, they go out to those calls and back up. They also do training. They speak at schools, at different events. But I think the biggest part is where we want to get with the full-time is that proactive model. Because if you look at our most vulnerable, it's about, if you want to pick two words, hopelessness and helplessness, right? So just having people checking on them, that support, I was able to see it with 3 teams that I worked with where I was. So having one full-time team was needed. So we were able to show the statistics of calls and the need for it and where we wanted to go with that proactive piece. But then it's not just about apprehensions. It's about helping people navigate the social system. A person who can't even remember to keep their OHIP card and loses their license. That team has actually stayed with clients here in Port Hope, taken them to get their new OHIP cards, licenses. You might say that's not police time, but it is, because those people have come into conflict with the law. And the 2 people I'm referring to, and obviously not giving their names, have not been in any trouble. And they credit Tammy, right? So, I mean, how do you beat that? It's exponential to spend that kind of time with people and that kind of caring. So,
Councillor Lass.
We wanted to bring this information forward from the police service and the police, Port Hope Police Board, because we think we have something very unique brewing here in Port Hope in terms of our proactivity as opposed to just reacting to crime, and minor or major crime as it could be. You see that there's a whole bunch of kind of hidden services that you wouldn't typically associate with policing, and we do an excellent job at it. And I think you can sense by the chief's enthusiasm and his use of names that he's very, very intent on building a superior communications relationship with not only the community, his own officers, his staff, and looking after their growth. We have a real gem in the inspector that we recently hired away from the OPP, much to their chagrin. Tough luck for them, good luck for us, and we attract a lot of policing from outside of this area that want to join us because Port Hope has a superb reputation in policing. And what I'd really like to hear in the future is from residents of both Ward 1 and Ward 2 about what they think about this policing model. And Chief, you did a great job.
Thanks, Councillor. And actually, we're going to be doing that very shortly. So looking forward to our meeting on Thursday to discuss further what that plan is going to look like for our new strategic plan. So it's exciting.
Councillor Mink would like to ask one last question.
Thank you. And Councillor Les just reminded me of something. So being proactive, so recently we had someone from the community reach out wanting to know about what type of proactive programs we have for anti-Semitism or any other sort of targeted, I don't know, if racism or targeted attack against particular groups in our community. Could you share some of what Port Hope Police has in place in case those things arise?
Thank you, Councillor. And I know, Chief, that you did an extended response to that resident, so maybe you can just highlight what you had responded to them.
Yeah, so as I said, I'm blessed that the board allows me to sit in the Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police. So we drafted a protocol, a white paper, discussion paper, so to speak, on anti-Semitism, but hate crime in general. Anti-Semitism as well, because it's at the forefront right now. But there's been several, we've been dealing with several types of hate crimes over the last 15 years, especially. And actually, since COVID, I'd say it's gone exponentially more challenging. So we have the ability to work with our police services for public order response, all those things. But just to your question, Councillor Mink, we will go out at any time and speak to people. It's about the training that our officers have and the information that they have that they can carry with them to the community. I know that Tammy deals with these things in the schools. I know that our constituent, one of his concerns and his wife's partner's concerns were what his kids were dealing with in the schools. So Tammy's also reaching out to that person, and we've invited that gentleman or his family into the police station. We can go there, we can go to the schools, we can go anywhere that anyone would want a presentation. But are we actually going out and doing those things without being called? We aren't. It's going to be more of not complaint driven, but an ask or a request to us. Similar to a lot of the retirement homes calling for fraud. It's not similar in a way. There's nothing like hate is the bottom line is terrible, but similar presentations that we do there. Our officers are trained and can give them at any time.
Thank you for that. And my concern too is that the one person came forward, and usually where there's one person, there's more. So just getting that communication out there that if you're feeling vulnerable or feeling this way, that there is someone to reach out to.
Absolutely. And Ryan Taschner, that's our Inspector General of IOP, Inspector of Policing, had occasion to talk to him last week at a meeting. And we're both passionate about everything Middle East, everything Israel. And he had said that he was going to be forwarding some information as he gets it too that can help us from that provincial, just a different lens, because he has serious concerns about that as well.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you very much for
thanks,
being
Shirley.
here. Oh, sorry, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Chief, first off, thank you for your presentation. Also, thank you for bringing up Tammy Staples. I don't know if very many people know about Tammy Staples in Port Hope, so it's really nice that you did highlight Tammy. That's a joke. Everybody knows Tammy Staples in Port Hope. I just wanted to ask you a quick question about calls of service and HTAs of 2026. Are they trending upwards or downwards so far here in 2026?
So calls for service are going to
calls
be
of-
very close. So the annual report's just been finished. The board is going to review it. I believe we're talking about it on Thursday. I just reviewed it. I went over. The calls are basically the same. 6,386 to 6,350, let's just say. So we may have gone down 30 calls for service. But it's more of analyzing which ones. You said HTA?
Yeah.
So I'll say since we lost our part-time officers, if you're looking at traffic enforcement, you're going to see traffic enforcement has gone down the ponds. Not that it's not happening, but it has gone down. Those officers, those 3 officers that's what they were doing. It was like having a traffic unit in town. Now that we're down to 1 part-time, it's made it a little bit more challenging. In regards to the accidents, you're going to see the same trend. We talked about it the other day. Everywhere's an accident challenge in Port Hope. It's not, we don't have 3 intersections that we can really target. If you look at them in days, I think it's, what is it, Councillor Andrews, Fridays?
Any warm, sunny day,
Yeah.
10 o'clock in the morning to 3 in the afternoon, it could occur.
But it is a concern for the community. It's another one of those concerns. When you look at traffic, drugs, here it's traffic is higher than the concern about drug issues right now.
And what about severity when it comes to like speeding in town? Has it seemed to go up, or are people just same as last year?
It's similar, but I will say that we've done a couple projects. So if, again, complaint driven, if a constituent calls us, citizen, community member calls us and asks for the traffic, we'll send them. They'll do their LiDAR, do those things, but they're still finding, like in a 50 zone, 60 seems incredibly high. When you're living there and you're used to people driving at 40 or 50, 60, they think they're flying, or 55. And they're not getting a lot of traffic enforcement in a lot of those areas, but they still go there. They'll still show up. That was the other thing that I never got a chance to mention. Most police services are doing online reporting just because they're that crazy busy. When you come into work and you have 15 to 50 calls waiting, it's pretty tough to do any proactive work. Here, we can have busy days, but we still do have time to do proactive work. Even though we have the ability to do the online reporting, we're not asking people to do that at this point, because that changes the whole relationship in a community as soon as you ask a community to start reporting everything online. So we attend every single call in Port Hope.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thanks
Richard.
again.
Thanks, everyone.
To council, and the recommended motion is to receive this delegation for information. Can I get a mover and seconder? Moved by the Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Mink. All in favor? And that is passed. Moving on to our next delegation, Nathan Tedford and Josh Bobick, on behalf of the Environmental Advisory Committee regarding removing barriers to biodiversity, naturalization, and urban food production. Welcome.
Thank you.
and happy to be here during Earth Week on behalf of the Environmental Advisory Committee. I believe we almost have a quorum in the room from our committee as well, so it's very great to see. The Sustainability Expo has already been plugged, so I don't need to spend too much time on that. But I'm happy to be able to come in advance of Earth Day, giving an update on some work that the Environmental Advisory Committee has been doing, specifically around implementation issues related to the Community Climate Action Plan. And so the passage of the Community Climate Action Plan last year was a big milestone, not only for the town, but for the Environmental Advisory Committee as well, as we're helping to lead the implementation and liaise with the community on this. And so one of the actions that we had coming out of this was to look at the various strategies and areas that we had and identify essentially where are there specifically here bylaw issues that are out of alignment with how the Community Climate Action Plan frames certain issues. And predominantly it's because many of those bylaws were passed in the past, and this has kind of brought a new direction to it. There was a couple of other things. We had a delegation from youth in the community last year speaking on boulevards to butterflies, sort of encouraging us to look at that. And they had actually done some of their own research into bylaws of other municipalities that we were lucky enough to be able to have them share with us, along with pictures and sort of what they were doing local to their schools. And this also kind of adopted, we were referred from council, the encroachment bylaw, and so that kind of folded into what we've been looking at. And so there's 17 strategies as a whole, and as you can see, the bylaw updates we're looking at really address 6 strategies, or certainly portions of 6 strategies, so it is quite wide-ranging. So we've looked really at 5 bylaws, 4 existing and the encroachment one that was referred. And really what the focus was is looking at what the Community Climate Action Plan is trying to encourage our community members to proceed with and identify areas where there might be some ambiguities or overlap. And so we looked at municipal maintenance, tree protection, property standards, and clean yards. And even if we look at this, a clean yard bylaw looks to regulate litter, yard waste, and sort of property maintenance. Property standards does kind of a similar thing. It's the standards for maintenance on occupation of properties. So there is some overlap. Municipal maintenance talks to the boulevard area. And again, we can kind of see some of the preambles on the slides here in terms of encouraging natural areas. But then when you actually get into the clauses that are written, there's some ambiguity and things that we think that could be improved. One of the other areas that we think is cause for some confusion within the bylaws and just at large is definition of where municipal property ends and private property begins in sort of the term of boulevard area. And a lot of people's front yards, side yards in many areas are actually municipal property. And so the diagram on the screen kind of shows in areas where there is a sidewalk, there's the road, you have a strip beside the road, you have the sidewalk, then there's actually a fairly wide area potentially of municipally owned land up until when you get to that private property line. And the way that the bylaws are set up right now is that there's actually different standards potentially on both sides of that dividing line, even though it kind of happens right in the middle of people's front yards. And so it's ambiguous that way, and we want to encourage it to be harmonized such that we have the same standards essentially on both sides of that private to public line. Now, we do realize next to the road, next to driveways, next to intersections, next to hydrants, that we do need to have restrictions in place for traffic sightlines, collisions, encouraging access. But again, it's once you kind of pass through that threshold, we think there's an opportunity to encourage more naturalization, food production in other areas. We've summarized a few of the different sort of language and rules that are in the bylaws themselves versus what we're looking to encourage from the strategies that are embedded in the Community Climate Action Plan. So on the right-hand side is, we're looking to encourage naturalization, improve biodiversity, native species planting, rain gardens, right? Encourage water retention on properties and not having it overflow into storm sewer systems, urban food production, and all of those are things that we want to encourage. But when we look at what the bylaws are, again, there's very sort of strict definitions that can be applied. One of the other interesting things that we came across is there has been a number of litigation instances over the past couple of decades between municipalities and residents who are trying to encourage or maintain naturalized areas. A number of them have ended up in the Superior Court of Ontario, and all of those have kind of been found in favor of the residents maintaining naturalized areas, apart from the fact that they do have to maintain appropriate sort of safety and health and safety concerns. So we think there's an opportunity to, again, take some of those learnings from those areas and apply them to our bylaws. A really quick sort of overview on the screen of the 5 different bylaws that we looked at and the Community Climate Action Plan, which is really the lens in which we did this review. And again, we want to encourage naturalization, food production, boulevard use. And I would say there's kind of mixed messages throughout each of the different bylaws. They may conflict with each other. They may restrict what we're trying to do. So again, it's aligning our actual bylaws and policies with what we're trying to encourage in the Climate Action Plan. And part of this, again, is, if we have people like our youth delegation from Boulevards to Butterflies, they kind of, the first thing they do, hey, we want to go do this on our front yard. Okay, well, let's go see if we're allowed to do this, right? And well, the bylaw says we can't, right? So regardless of what the policy might be, that's sort of the first interface potentially with sort of, hey, can we follow and help implement this policy from the Climate Action Plan? So we just want to try and, again, make it more aligned, make it easier for someone who goes to look at it and say, no, this is explicitly allowed. I can go forward with that and help to push this forward. What's important as well is that this isn't new. So we have done, myself together with the members of the Environmental Advisory Committee, surveyed a lot of other municipal bylaws throughout Ontario, looking at what's been done and what's been put into place. And so looking at encouraging boulevard productions, having tree protection not only on private land but on municipal land, encouraging green infrastructure, encouraging naturalization, and how to sort of go through those. There's an attachment to the minutes in this presentation where there's a more detailed analysis and sort of recommendations of specific bylaws that have been in place, sort of as guidance. They may not be applicable directly in this case, but again, we're not proposing something that hasn't been done elsewhere as well. And so I think in closing, the ask from the Environmental Advisory Committee is that the recommendations for updates to those bylaws are considered in alignment with the Community Climate Action Plan, and that essentially whatever the results are reported back then to council. And again, we're not looking to set a new direction. The Community Climate Action Plan has set the direction, and we're just sort of working on implementation and removing barriers to help community members really participate in that plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here, and thank you for your presentation. I'm going to turn it over to council for questions or comments. Councillor Todd.
Thanks very much. I don't have any questions. I just simply want to commend you. I think this is it's an excellent report. I think it's well thought out. I was reading through it and I was wildly impressed. I think it raises the bar on what our advisory committees are capable of doing and what they should be doing. I think this is a massive value add for staff and for council, and I hope that we see more of it from your advisory committee and the others. So thank you so much.
Thank you for that, Councillor Todd. Any other, Councillor Mink?
Thank you. So thank you for your presentation, and I think this is very demonstrative of the challenges that we have here up on council, is that many times we pass one bylaw that suggests one thing and then are referred to a bylaw, and then 2 weeks later we have something that tells us the opposite. So there's always that conflict. Did you find, I noticed that you picked a sample of bylaws to look at, and I find often sitting up here on this side is that there's always competing interests between environmental, heritage, and accessibility. And they often conflict with each other, or one takes priority over the other. Did you look into those at all? Or I know your scope is limited, but I'm just wondering if you have thoughts on that.
Yeah, so not during this particular exercise. It has been something that we have requested that any future bylaws under consideration continue to be routed to the advisory committees so that we can review. I think really what we were looking to encourage is, in this particular case, is if there are community members that are looking to proceed and sort of implement any of those areas that are under the Community Climate Action Plan, that they're not prohibited from doing so. So there are certainly other, between heritage and environment and I agree there are competing priorities, but that wasn't really the focus of this review. So that would be something I think we'd rely on, sort of collaborative review process with other advisory committees and members of the community at large. But again, I think it'll be, as hopefully we're engaged in other bylaws, there can be constructive conversations about, how best to balance between all of the competing priorities as they may or may not conflict.
Thank you. So one other question, I'm just gonna, it's not really your presentation, but it's glaring at me here, is the tree protection bylaw.
Yep.
So I'm looking back there to my former committee member from the Tree Advisory Committee many, many years ago when we tried to bring this bylaw through, and it was a challenge, and it's a very basic bylaw. So you said that you looked at lots of bylaws. Just want to know your thoughts on that compared to what else is out there in the community.
You want to take this one?
Sure.
There you go. Pass that to Josh.
Yes. It is definitely vague and basic, as you mentioned, as far as, the gold standard, Toronto, Oakville, Burlington, mainly west of Toronto. Definitely, again, that gold standard of things, but moving east, still more protection measures. There's definitely more details, guidelines, again, those strict standards of tree protection, especially. Tree planting, tree guideline, tree establishment is another big thing that is maybe not addressed in this bylaw as well, especially with developers, which this bylaw mainly focuses on, is that development and new tree planting and arborist reports and things like that are definitely missing. So I think that's definitely something we could look at in the future and maybe push kind of a separate motion for tree protection bylaw.
Councillor Clare.
I just did want to mention that Josh is our resident arborist and works in urban forestry in another jurisdiction, so he's been a tremendous resource on that topic in particular. I did want to just mention that the advisory committee did have a chance to meet with our manager of bylaw prior to coming and doing the delegation this evening, and I wondered if David Chatwell wanted to speak to, if we were to pass a motion referring this to staff to advance the recommendations, what your approach would be on that.
Thank you, Councillor. Through the mayor to you. Basically, the approach would be to take everything that you've advised here and put it through a policy. Generally, the reason why we have so many different bylaws and there's slight overlap in each, one, property standards mainly deals with buildings, but it also does deal with property maintenance. But Clean Yards kind of expedites that process and deals mostly with the outside of a property and not the building itself. And municipal maintenance tries to deal with the boulevards and that being maintained properly along with snow and ice. So it's unifying your vision and the EAC's vision into a policy so that, as I've been informed before, if I'm one day no longer here, that enforcement staff definitely knows how to administer these bylaws and how to do that appropriately. And I look forward to working with the EAC throughout the year to develop that policy.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I am assuming there is a motion that's going to be on the table. Councillor Clare.
Yes, I would like to move that the EAC's recommendations on municipal bylaw updates relating to biodiversity, naturalization, and urban food production in support of the Community Climate Action Plan be referred to staff for consideration, and that staff report back to council on the feasibility and implications of the recommendations and propose next steps.
Thank you for that. And Councillor Todd is going to be seconding, so it's now on the table. And I'm just assuming now that part of the course is also vetting this through the EDI policy, even though it's not explicitly put here. I wonder if that can be a friendly amendment to be more explicit, but I also see the CAO's hand up.
Yeah, through you, Chair. Yeah, thank you for that. I guess I would like to a time bound on this. Is there a time frame that Council is looking for us to come back? And if so, I would like to confer with staff before we make a commitment to what we actually think to cover bylaws. Yes, Mayor, we do agree that we would look at it through the lens of EDI, accessibility, climate action, so that is going to take some work to do.
Councillor Clare.
I think when we met with the manager of bylaw, we discussed a end of 2026 as a timeline.
CAO.
Through you, Chair, I would like to talk with the senior staff on that timeline. That is probably fairly aggressive for the amount of bylaws and the work that we would have to look through.
Okay, so we Councillor Mink.
Yes, so I just wanted to make that comment too, that I support this and I support the delegation, but I know that our staff has a big, long list of bylaws that are very outdated that need to come forward. So that's my only concern, is that I don't want to interfere with that timeline that staff is already working on. So I'm just wondering if any way this thought can be applied to anything that they're working on that's already on their list of things, and then circle back to this to update once that list gets worked through. That's my questions and thoughts around that.
So maybe I will go back and ask the CEO if he wants to just comment on Councillor Mink's comment, and then I'll turn it back to Councillor Clare.
Sorry, could you reframe that, Councillor Mink? I didn't catch all of it.
Well, just knowing that there is a long list of bylaws that have to be updated. And if we put this forward, what are we pausing to prioritize this? So my thoughts more are what's already on the list to be done. If this sort of idea that was presented today can be applied to those bylaws that are coming forward, this thought process, without putting a pause onto the current work that's in the roster.
So, with the new municipal solicitor on board, we are trying to do that comprehensive review. We could target for this case for the Climate Action Advisory Committee suggestions. We could focus on some key bylaws that were addressed in the policy, and that would be, we could just focus on that for now. As we bring new bylaws forward, we would do it through the lens of EDI, community action, or climate action, accessibility for future new bylaws. But we can focus, if council will give us direction to focus on those very specific bylaws, that would be very, very helpful.
Just a point of clarification, on the dashboard, do we have actions right now that are looking at a broader bylaw project that needs to be completed? And so if not, can the focus be on these? And if so, can these be brought into the work, not to work at cross purposes?
My recollection is that we have not received past council direction on which is what's on that action register. It's just a compilation of the directions by council. The process of internal bylaw review is an internal process that I've been wanting to take on since I've started. So yes, we can, if council gives direction on these very specific bylaws that are referenced in the presentation, we can work towards that, and that will be added to the action register.
Thank you, and I've got two more sets of comments, Councillor Clare and Councillor Less.
Yes, just to confirm to you, CAO, I think the intention of the resolution is to focus on the specific recommendations that were in respect to that small set of bylaws, not to look at all the municipal bylaws going back in perpetuity, but to look at the recommendations for the ones that have already been reviewed. And I appreciate we don't want to, we always have to be conscious of balancing time and making sure, what we're prioritizing. I do just want to, though, remind us all that we did adopt this climate action plan, and advancement of the community climate action plan also shouldn't necessarily be waiting, because we've got barriers to that we need to clean up in our own documentation as well. So I think just keep that in mind as we're thinking about the timeline. we had talked with the bylaw manager about end of this year, but should that not be deemed to be feasible, I think we haven't included that specificity in the resolution. So of course, if staff needed to come back and propose a different timeline as part of next steps, I think that would be.
It's the beauty of having a dashboard now. Councillor Less.
Yeah, we recently passed another notice of motion, one of many this year, that outlines that staff will get back to us on a timely basis on all outstanding items. So I think we work within that and not just all of a sudden throw the flavor of the month at them and say, we want this. Nope, we want this. So let's do it in some sort of rational order.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table that's got a mover and a seconder. Any further discussion on this? Okay, let's take a vote. All in favor? And that is passed. Thank you for being here. Moving on to our last delegation of the evening, Bob Wallace, Chairperson, and Margaret Scott, CEO, Port Hope Public Library Board, regarding the 2025 Port Hope Public Library Spring Update.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. Tonight, we would like to give you a snapshot of our accomplishments in 2025 and some of the initiatives that we have planned for 2026. And then part of our presentation, as you have seen through the package, is a resolution regarding annual public library funding from the province of Ontario. And joining me tonight is Bob Wallace, the chairperson of the Port Hope Public Library Board. And I also like to recognize Christine Withrow, the chairperson of Friends of the Library, who has, this is her first council meeting, she tells me. So we're happy that she's here to support us. On your desk, you have a copy of the 2025 annual report from the Port Hope Public Library. I encourage you to take this home, have a read. We're always happy to receive your questions and comments. And just an added bonus is a marketing initiative from our own staff. We've contracted a Ontario business to make these vinyl stickers of the original Carnegie Library. So feel free to use those. We have lots of them, so just drop by the library if you'd like a few more. We're going to start just to talk about the funding of the library, because this is tied to the resolution that's at the end of the presentation. So, as you know, thank you. That's why I have a partner here to help. Generally speaking, the municipality provides at least 90% of the funding for the library. This varies from year to year based on use of reserves, capital funding, and also our fundraising and donations. So in 2025, that amount was $980,000. The provincial grant, primarily, we also get funding through other sources, provincially based, including summer employment programs, was $31,827 last year. And then fundraising also varies from year to year. Last year, it was just close to $32,000. So part of our initiative in 2027, we're now working on 27 budget as well, but in 2026 is to look at some fundraising initiatives, an actual plan, which would be implemented in 2027, whereby the library would be in a position to apply for additional funding, grants, fundraising, and work with our friends to the library to increase our revenues in that way. I just want to say a couple of things about the annual provincial library operating grant, also known as the PLOG. This is a statutory requirement in the Public Libraries Act. The province must provide this funding. It is a per household grant, and the emphasis here is that the formula has not been reviewed in close to 30 years. So things have changed, communities have developed, and it no longer really meets the needs for most library systems. So with the funding we do get from the province, plus the municipal funding, we're able to accomplish all these things that we did in 2025 and move forward with some ideas and initiatives for 2026. But if we had additional funding, and the PLOG also is used for operating costs only, so it wouldn't account for or fund any capital projects, but we could do even more in terms of serving the community. In 2025, we were able to upgrade our website. It's provided a much better experience for the community. Everything is more accessible. It's an easy thing for the staff to manage, and we've had great response to the new website. And part of that was the program guide and the quarterly newsletter. Those things are also available through the website. Those are initiatives that, taken on by the staff. The board directed that we do a community consultation regarding the hub branch. And that report was completed in the fall, and it will help direct work and service development in 2026. With the help of the Friends of the Library, who raised...
Sorry, Mark, did you want to advance the
sorry.
slides?
My apologies. Okay. With the help of the Friends of the Library, and they've raised close to $20,000, we've been able to upgrade and refresh the children's area of Mary J. Benson. It's remarkable the impact that has had. New furniture, new collections, maker space, and we have a few more things we would like to do there, as well as start on the teen area of Mary J. Benson on the second floor, also with support from the Friends of the Library. We did we had a community book sale, which everyone loves. They're an incredible amount of work, but we did raise some money for the library, and we've also refreshed our collection by conducting an extensive weed, is what we call it in the library, field of our physical collection. And we are very aware that there's greater demand for digital offerings and resources. They do come with a cost, so we're mindful of that in terms of our budgeting, but that is a direction that we are going in terms of technology and improved service. And then our new partnerships noted there, and we're happy to be working with the Youth Wellness Hub. We have reactivated our partnership with Early On and Child and Family Centers. They are now providing a regular program at the Mary J. Benson branch, so we're pleased to see them back working with the library. And then the Port Hope Jazz Festival is a new partnership last year. Okay, I'm going to turn this over to Bob.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to talk about our initiatives for the current year that we're in. And as Margaret said, we spent a fair amount of money that was raised by the Friends of the Library in enhancing the children's area, which is basically the first floor of the library. If anybody's been there recently, it's bright, it's colorful, it's noisy, there's lots of children taking advantage of those facilities. So it's a real great upgrade to our library. So the next target area is the teen area, which is on the second floor near the north corner of the library. So that's based on funds available, but that's our next area that we want to enhance to make it more receptive for teens to use in that particular area. We're always looking at the facilities to see whether we are making best use of the facilities. We are cramped. We don't have a lot of storage space, but we're trying to make use of the facility as best we can. We want to proceed. We're going to talk about the MOU shortly. We also want to align our strategic plan with the municipality's key strategic pillars, is an initiative for this year. Lobby for enhanced provincial funding. As Margaret said, that grant that we get from the from provincial government has not changed in many, many, many years. But obviously, library, our services change and our communities have changed. We want to adopt this VOLT, they call it, Valuing Ontario Libraries Toolkit. And that's a tool that's been developed by Ontario Libraries, which will allow us to compare ourselves and evaluate what we're providing in service to the community and compare it to other libraries in Ontario. So we're just on the very edges of starting that. We have ongoing support with the Friends of Library, and I'm glad Christina's here. I've been attending their meetings regularly, and we're looking at how the Friends of the Library can enhance the work of the library. We're also looking at our board itself. As you well know, this is an election year and our terms all end in November. So we're looking at having documents in place and things like that in place for the transition to a new board at the end of the year. And we're looking at long-term planning, keeping our ear to the ground with regard to, as we just heard, about what's happening with OPG and how that will impact our community and use of the library. Ooh, that was good.
Moving along, enclosed in the package is a resolution requesting the support of Municipal Council. Thank you. To ask or to urge the province to conduct a review of the public library operating grant, in particular its formula, for all the reasons noted in the resolution. The role of libraries is increasing in the community. We're asked to do more, sometimes with less. So this is not a new initiative. A number of library boards across the province have taken similar action to request the province to increase its funding. There have been increases in funding from the province for specific areas such as First Nations, operations and staffing, and connectivity that are project-based, but they don't necessarily benefit all libraries in the same way. So this action by the province would allow for leveling the playing field, updating the funding formula so that libraries are getting an appropriate amount of money to deal with the development and increase in services at their respective libraries. So we would ask for the consideration of council with respect to this resolution. And just quickly to comment that this actually came about through a visit by MPP David Piccini last fall during Ontario Public Library Week. We had a conversation, and we talked about some of the priorities of the library and some of the province's priorities, and he indicated this would be an appropriate action for the Portal Public Library Board and Municipal Council, and that he would champion the cause. He would take it forward once the resolution is circulated and is endorsed by other councils, that he would have an active role in moving this forward.
Thank you very much for the presentation, and I note that Deputy Mayor has a comment.
Thank you. So thank you first for the presentation. I'm just curious with this resolution what the intention is with it. Is it to increase the budget or is it to reduce the dependency on the municipal levy? Noting that one of the whereases is that the municipality is like over 90%. Just curious what the intention is.
Did you want to deal with this first, and I can then comment? Okay.
I think the intent is to give us more money to operate with, basically. Like I say, that $30,000 has been that way for many years, and the intent is to increase that. If it impacts the municipal portion, that would be one aspect, or it allows us to do more things.
Councillor Todd.
Thank you for the presentation. I've got, I guess, two questions. They're somewhat related. So I was looking at your 2026 initiatives. I noticed that what's not on here, but I'm hoping it's built in someplace, is expanding access to the library by increasing hours of operation, both here and at the Canton Hub, so that we have more accessibility there. Is that baked in here someplace? Is that part of the 2026 plan? And then I got a second question that goes with that.
So thank you for the question. Certainly increased funding would allow us to do essentially that, increase technology and expand our hours. At Mary J. Benson, the plan is similar hours to what we had in 2025. And at the Hub, we have a new service plan that we're going to be reopening and launching with in an effort to, we've listened to the people when we did the review last year, so we know what they need and what they're looking for. And that's the whole goal, I think, of the Hub, is to meet those sorts of needs. And one of the messages that came through was that we need to be where people are, where their activities are, where they're living, that sort of thing. So we have one of the pieces to the hub reopening plan is to have a pop-up at the farmers market in Garden Hill. So it's a partnership and development, and we've already launched it. We have someone there every other week, and it's a great connection with the rural community, and they're very receptive to providing information and answering questions that we have. So.
Thank you for that, because recognizing, public library funded by the public, I think accessibility to the asset is going to be really important, which brings me to my second question. On the front door of the library, we indicate that public washrooms are available behind Town Hall. Why are we directing people away from the library for public washrooms when it's a public building funded by the public?
Yeah, well, it's an interesting question and a discussion that goes on, certainly at the staff level too. We do not turn people away. We do have limited facilities, and we have aged plumbing. And so when Salmon Run and big events like Float Your Fanny, that sort of thing, then we have people lined out the door and down the street. And then we also have people, and many of those people are tourists, also looking for services and amenities, but we also serve the people who live here too. So sometimes there's a conflict there, but we understand that we may be getting some upgrades to our those particular, the washroom facilities, but it's capacity, partly.
Yeah, I think I would be more in support of helping you find more public funds if we could take a sign like that down and acknowledge the fact that the public will go in, and whether they're residents or whether or not they're visitors, the library should be a place where the public can go in and congregate, and if they happen to go in, and I appreciate there may be some capacity issues from time to time on an event like Float Your Fanny, but outside of that, I'm not quite sure why that sign would be up, but my preference would be to see it come down.
Thank you. No, and I would just say that we have had discussions with municipal staff about additional washroom facilities during high demand events to help alleviate. And the other piece is that we're open Saturdays and Sundays, and some of the other facilities are not.
Thank you. And I actually do have a question, and that is the Canton Hub Library open?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Currently, it is not. We closed for the winter to, as a result of the review, to investigate options in terms of what needs to change at the hub in order to make it a viable service point. And so we did that. We are reopening in about 2 weeks' time. We have a new plan in place. We're open same number of hours, but different days, different times of day. We're trying to have this service available when there are other things going on in the building, because that's part of the challenge is when you're the only service there and getting people into the building. So we're doing some different programming. We're working with different partners. We're doing the pop-up at Garden Hill as a supplementary part of the service. And so we will be tracking our progress there. We'll be hiring a student who will help with some additional programming at that location, as well as Mary J. Benson.
I'm going to turn it over to Councillor Clare, but I do want to note that it's not the only service in the building. There's a childcare facility in the building as well now. So
yes, thank you, Mayor. And if I just comment, so just recently we've made some great connections with the daycare, both our staff going into the daycare, not just the Canton one, but that's the primary one of interest, but others, and also having the children who are at that daycare coming to the library for programming as well. So we've made some progress in the last few weeks on that.
Great opportunity for partnership there. Councillor Clare.
Thank you. I was very interested in the Volt framework. I did have a chance to check that out, and I will say I'm disappointed that they haven't figured out how to capture numerically the value of the library as far as being the commons, free, inclusive space for everyone. They haven't figured it out. I don't know that anybody else has yet. but I hope that you do. The question I did have was, I noticed that one of the dimensions that they're encouraging you to look at in terms of the value proposition is the involvement of volunteers. And I wondered if you could speak a little bit to, outside of the Friends of the Library, who I know do some fundraising, what other kind of volunteer opportunities or programs do you guys currently have at the library?
And thank you for doing that investigation on Volt. And I think you'll find it interesting as we start to report to the board and to council some of our findings. We work quite extensively with the schools, so TCS and the high school. So we have students who do their community service hours with the library, so that's volunteer. And then we do have, on occasion, members of the public who will assist with certain events or programs, and maybe not a long-term commitment, but certainly helps us fill some of the gaps. And we actually have a new volunteer policy that was just approved by the board, so we'll be enacting that policy. So that will help us do better recruitment and reach out to those who really would like to offer some volunteer time to the library.
Final question, Councillor Mink.
So it's not a question, it's just regarding the resolution that's here. So I just wanted to also sort of bring forward as a reminder that we're now in the province of Ontario, we're having schools built with no libraries in them. We have one, I think it's in Clarington, the first one here, that does not include a library, which then puts more need on our public libraries. So the fact that the funding from the province has not changed to compensate for that shift is one glaring need in front of us. So, and then to Councillor Adam, as well, to your question, is I think sending this resolution is not just an ask, but it's to bring that awareness. If something is quiet and sitting there in the background, then it never changes, right? So it's a matter of bringing this to the forefront and then seeing what comes of it. So the resolution here is in front of us, and as you said, our MPP did encourage this. So I would like to move the resolution that you brought forward, that we send the letter forward as recommended.
Okay, so we have a mover on that. We have a seconder with Councillor Clare. Any further conversation on this? I hope it's also an opportunity for us to strengthen the rural library presence and ensure that the Canton Hub Library remains open and that we don't have any closures in the future. All in favor? Thank you, and that is passed. Thank you very much for being here. At this point, council is going to take a 10-minute recess. Okay, we're going to restart. I realize it's been a long evening because we did accommodate an additional delegation this evening, so we're now moving on to our public comment period. It's now time for the comment period, and as per our procedural bylaw, the purpose is for members of the public to provide comments on items that are on today's council agenda. If you have questions related to an item that's not on today's agenda, please wait until question period, which is later in the meeting. And I request that you keep your comments brief and respectful. And I also remind council members that no questions or comments can be directed to those that are providing public comments this evening. So if you'd like to provide a comment, please approach the podium now and state your name, and staff will turn on the mic.
Good evening, councillors and mayor. Doug Smith, rural Port Oak. I have some a couple of things I wanted to talk about. This is coming up on your agenda for updates on the river and waterfront working plan. And I know, like, being part of the Restore the West Beach, when we did our presentation to the working group, we had 2,400 supporters for our group. But I'm very much sure that my presentation meant one person. And because a lot of the stuff I see is for a natural-based beach rather than recreational. And I just like to maybe hear what they talk about when they do their update. And there was one other thing, the Alexander Creek rehab that the Port Hope Area Initiative have been doing a lot of work on. It's on a pause right now through the CNSC. And I know they're trying to make it into a natural sort of a setting because of the plan. And there is a way that I think it can be resolved, but it would be kind of taking the creek back to the 1800s and what state it was then. Because when the railways got put in 120 years ago, they changed the creek. And there you go. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Doug, for bringing forward those two comments. Anybody else for public comment this evening? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda, approval of minutes. Items listed under the consent agenda are considered collectively as one motion. Council members may request that specific items be removed for separate discussion, deliberation, and action. The consent items are listed on the agenda. Would anybody like to remove any of these items for separate discussion this evening? Seeing none. Can I please get a mover and seconder to approve the minutes as listed? Moved by Councillor Todd, second by Councillor Clare. All in favor? And that is passed unanimously. Moving on to item number 10, consent agenda advisory committee and board meetings. Would anyone like to remove any of these items for separate discussion? Seeing none, can I please get a mover and seconder to receive the advisory committee minutes as information? Moved by Councillor Darrell, second by the Deputy Mayor. All in favor? And that's passed. Moving on to item number 11, items for consideration. 11.1, report LLS 1926 Re 7 Marsh Road Land Agreement. Does council have any questions or comments about this report? Councillor Less.
Yes, two things. One, does council feel and staff feel that the parking is adequate? Because if we get it wrong, there's really no place easily for residents or visitors to park in that area.
I'm looking at our solicitor. Would like to comment on this.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Councillor Andrews. So this report is just specifically about a memorandum of agreement for taking ownership of that pathway and watercourse ditch area. So the consideration of the application, so right now I believe they did apply for minor variance, which was approved last week. But the next step for them will be to apply for site plan. So there'll be a whole list of items that will be submitted, including, I believe, parking requirements as part of the site plan application, and that will be reviewed by staff.
Okay, maybe more pertinent to this, and if I'm wrong, let me know. I was once wrong before. Have we done any negotiation at all as to getting the developer to provide some form of rental assistance, rental housing, such as we did with the project on Henderson Street? And is now a good time to do those negotiations?
Thank you for that, Councillor Less, and I couldn't agree more that now is a good time to have that conversation.
Thank you.
And I'm happy to do so. I guess it would be the follow-up. Any other comments on this? Okay, so the recommended motion is listed on the agenda. Can I get a mover and seconder for this? The Deputy Mayor is moving. Councillor Todd is seconder. All in favor? And that is passed. Moving on to 11.2, report PRC 0626 Re Waterfront and Riverwalk Master Plan Implementation Update. Does council have any questions or comments regarding this report this evening? Councillor Clare.
Just because you've sat here for 2 hours waiting for this. Just to say, I'm always impressed. It's such a big master plan and so much going on. And it's great to see these reports come forward on sort of a regular cadence, just so we can see things getting ticked off the list. And some of them are not so flashy that you don't necessarily see, but there's obviously a lot of work going on behind the scenes. So thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other, I think we'll just all agree with what Councillor Clare said, is that it's really important that we do get these updates, and they're very appreciated. So the recommended motion is to receive this for information. Can I get a mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor Less, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. All in favor? And that is passed. Moving on to 11.3, Report PRC 0726, re-2026, update to park fees. Does council have any questions or comments on this? Seeing none, the recommended motion is listed on the agenda. Can I get a mover and seconder on this? Moved by Councillor Darrell, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. All in favor? And that is passed unanimously. Moving on to item number 12, consent agenda, committee reports and recommendations. We have a consent agenda for committee reports and recommendations. Council has the ability to pull an item under the consent agenda if they want to consider it separately. And any item removed will be addressed following the consent agenda motion. So would anybody like to pull any of this for a separate discussion? And I'm seeing Councillor Mink.
Sorry, this is just a point of order, not necessarily for this, but for the committee minutes. I meant to speak to a comment in the accessibility committee, and it had passed before. Can I have an opportunity to speak to that?
Can we do it after we get through this business? Okay, yes. All right, so getting back to where we were, does anybody want to remove any of these items for separate discussion? Okay, there are no removals, so I'm going to ask for mover and seconder to approve the committee recommendations as listed below. Councillor Clare is going to move. Councillor Mink is going to second. All in favor? And that is passed unanimously. Circling back to you, Councillor Mink.
Thank you. So thank you, first of all, Mayor, for letting me speak to this. I just wanted to highlight on the February minutes, at the very end of the minutes, there's a motion that the Accessibility Advisory Committee recommends that Council direct staff to look into the feasibility of offering a senior and accessibility assistance snow removal pilot program in order to relieve the mental and physical burdens associated with snow removal. And I just wanted to talk about this for a minute. So this really came forward from Coburg, who took Oshawa's proposal and came up forward with a pilot program. The Accessibility Committee talked about having a program where they would only remove snow from the windrows, not the entire driveway, and it would be for those who fall under the disability I forget the program, the people who qualify. It wouldn't be everybody. I did speak with the director about this as well, and I know that some staff have been looking into it, and this is not something that could be ready for this year at all. This winter, there's definitely a lot that would need to be done. But I just wanted to highlight this. I'm not ready to make a motion now, but this is something that the Accessibility Committee has recommended, and it's something that gets a lot of conversation in the community.
Thank you, Councillor Mink. That's a really critical issue, and we really appreciate you bringing that forward with that explanation. Moving on to the next item, we don't have any new motions this evening. Moving on to item number 14, bylaws, consent agenda. Does anyone want to pull a bylaw for any further discussion this evening? Okay, if not, can I get a mover and seconder? For the Councillor Darrell is moving, Councillor Mink is seconding. All in favor? And that is passed unanimously. And at this point, we're just going to take a 30-second break and ask staff to leave just before we go into question period. Okay, thank you. We're now going to move on to question period. It's your opportunity to ask brief, direct questions to council members about matters of municipal business. Please remember that it's not a time to ask questions of staff. Operational questions we can pass on to the relevant staff members and have them get back to you. And please keep your questions concise. Long preambles or commentary are not appropriate. So simply state your questions or question clearly and directly. So if you have a question, please approach the podium and state your name.
Hi, Ed White. Nope. Gee whiz, every time. Okay. All right, I'm asking this question for a friend. Okay. It's concerning the hub parking in the municipal lot on Cavan Street. This friend got a ticket because there was no spaces where they could park. Now, I'm not forgiving the fact that they parked wrong, but his question was, there's 8 spaces that are reserved. I don't know what they're reserved for. It says you got to have a permit to park there. Now, I don't know whether that's handicap parking or what it is. I don't know what it is. He said he thought it was for the youth hub, that those parking spots were for the youth hub. I went by there today, basically 4:30, somewhere in that area. There was no cars in those 8 spaces. The only car that I saw that had anything to do with the hub was parked in front of the building. So my question is, would it be possible to put a time on those 8 spaces so that people that are in the area of Cavan Street that would normally park could perhaps park like overnight, or there was some kind of time limit or something where they could park, given the fact that I've never seen any cars parked in those parking spots.
Thank you for that question, Ed. It's the current situation is a pilot, and so this kind of feedback and comments are well appreciated. And the thinking behind the pilot is no different than any other, say, medical buildings that you would frequent where there can be reserved parking for staff and doctors, et cetera. But it is a pilot, so staff is revisiting the pilot and the number of spaces, et cetera. So this feedback is very appreciated.
Okay, where would one be able to give you feedback on that?
Well, you can write to mayor@porthope.ca, you could write to the entire council, or you could write it to the clerk. So lots of different options for how you can communicate this.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Cameron Green, Port Hope. At the February 17th council meeting, there was some discussion about council acting as the Community Advisory Committee, and PHAI and staff were given 45 days to brief council on the committee roles and functions, and I wonder if there's any updates to report?
Yes, there are. May 5th, council is going to be receiving training and education on this.
Okay, and I've heard that there's going to be a special council meeting open to the public?
That's correct.
Okay. And would that be posted to the agenda and communicated to the public?
As all our meetings are, that is correct.
Okay. I don't think that's been done as of yet, so in the near future, we would expect that.
We are only required to do so 2 weeks ahead of time, which we always do for all of our meetings. Oh, sorry. Sorry, I'm going to get clarification from the clerk on this.
So in accordance with the procedure bylaw, we are required to provide 72 hours notice for any sort of special meetings that are coming forward. So in this case, the meeting has been scheduled for May 5th. So we anticipate that, I meant to say, Madam Mayor, that it is happening in 2 weeks. So So,
72 hours.
yeah, it'll likely be sometime in early May, I would imagine, that we would be posting that agenda and notice. Yeah.
Thanks very much.
I meant in 2 weeks, but I think that the clerk has a perfect track record in terms of communicating with the public around all of our meetings. So we appreciate that. Any further questions from the public this evening?
Doug Smith, rural Port Hope again. I guess I have to up here twice tonight. So I'd like to ask some of the councillors about the river waterfront working plan in regards to West Beach and how it ended up moving towards a natural beach as versus a recreational beach. This is the direction that I see it going. And I'm not getting any answers on that, other than that it must have got approved a while ago by council. I did my presentation to the working group. And
Thank you for that question. And I think on this one, I'm going to actually toss it to you, Councillor Todd, because you were part of that group, and see if you would like to make a comment on it, and if required, I think I see the CAO kind of putting his hand up, but.
Sure, yeah, I'll answer as best I can. So the question, Doug, if I understand, is how is it moving in that direction versus going into the rec side? Yeah. Is that right? Yeah, because I think when we were finished up with that document, there was some rec stuff that was put down there. You know, the plan itself is always going to be a bit of a moving target. So once that's been endorsed, then it always goes over to staff to be able to decide what's going to go on it. Yeah. Funding, of course, is going to play into it. It'll always be an evolving piece of land, so things can always be added to it as time goes on, according to budget. Mm-hmm. But you know, that piece of land hasn't even been fully developed because it hasn't even been completely turned over to us yet.
Okay, but I see Councillor Mink's got her hand up, so go ahead.
Thank you. And I think one key issue is that it is a dynamic beach. So that does put constraints on it, and the report talks about that dynamic beach and what that means still has to be determined fully.
Yeah. I know when I did the presentation to the working group, I was very aware that it's a dynamic beach. And one recommendation our group made to the working group was before you did anything inland, to do something about the flooding and possible damage from storms to the park. And you know, we talked about groins, which are very, very expensive. There's other alternatives, or even a berm wall, which a lot of people had to do back in after 2019 when the lake level got very high down in the Picton area, and ours was very high here. It flooded half the beach.
So Doug, is the question, what are we doing to try? Okay, so I think it's a fair question to say, you know, how are we going to move forward to ensure that, I mean, dynamic aside, is what kind of measures can we take to ensure that we don't have the erosion of that beach? And I'm sure this is going to be something that we will continue to discuss at council, but thank you for bringing that forward to us.
All right, good.
Thank you for being
Thanks
here.
a lot.
Thanks. Okay. I think that concludes our question period for this evening. It's now time for our confirmatory bylaw. The bylaw confirms the proceedings that took place this evening and provides a formal adoption through a bylaw. Can I get a mover and seconder for this? Moved by Councillor Darrell, second by Councillor Less. All in favor? And that is passed. This concludes our business to be covered on today's agenda. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I am adjourning the meeting at 8:43 p.m. Thank you.